Hello, my name is Fred Farris with the Aspire Institute. Today I want to talk about how can you work less and earn more? How do you structure your construction company for long-term profit? I know that seems a little bit odd to say work less and earn more, but it's a real thing. If you structure your business properly, there's a lot more potential, and I want to help you understand how to get there. So really what it comes down to is instead of chasing top line revenue, instead of saying, I want to be a 5 million or 10 million or even $1 million company, let's look at it from the other side. How much do you want to make a year, right? What is the net profit you want to make? What is the paycheck you want to make? And what is your actual overhead? And therefore, how much gross profit do we need for the business? And then how do we get there in the easiest, most sustainable way possible, not the hardest way possible? I think this is an issue in our industry where we're chasing revenue and hoping that there's some profit left instead of being structured and building a real business model that says this is the profit we're going to get and this is how we get there. So I want to talk through that. And it starts with understanding your costs. When you look at your P&L, there's a lot of costs that we need to make sure we understand as job costs and we're accounting for our job costs. So you have your income, which is what we have highlighted here in blue. You have your labor cost in orange, which is your field wages, the tax and benefit load on your field, your sales, supervision, estimating cost, and the tax and benefit load on those positions. You have your subcontractor in green, your material costs in pink, and then the purple is what we consider indirect and related costs. These are other job costs that we need to account for in the project because they really are part of the project. Then we have the yellow costs below. Those are true overhead costs. So office staff, the office tax and benefit load, the general admin expenses, and the marketing expenses. So if we break those down, you have your revenue, then you have your production costs, and then you get gross profit. That gross profit then pays your overhead and net profit. If we put some numbers to this for every, let's say, $1 million in revenue, we have a production cost of 880,000. That leaves us with $120,000 in gross profit. That 120 then pays our overhead of, let's say, 100,000 at 10%, leaving us with a 2% net profit. And sadly, this is pretty close to how I've seen most businesses are within this range that we've worked with over the last few years. And the problem here isn't that we need to sell more, in revenue or that we need to cut our overhead necessarily. The problem with this is our production cost as a percentage, 88%, is too high. And some of that is in inefficiencies, in pricing strategies, but in also not accounting for all of our costs. Then there's also another aspect to this where job mix plays in, where we aren't understanding that every job mix should have a different margin. So I want to talk about job mix for a minute because I think that's an area that can really help you guys. So when you're looking at job mix, I kind of break it down to there's low margin jobs and high margin jobs and everywhere in between. I call these low margin jobs celery jobs because they say that you can starve to death eating celery because it takes more calories to chew and digest celery than you actually get from celery. So they're not winning jobs. And if you live down here, your margin's not going to be great, right? If we can move a little bit a little bit up market, the middle area, we kind of get to near break even, which is where I see most builders currently running. But if we could shift just a little bit more, if you dropped one or two of those low margin jobs and picked up one of the higher margin jobs, it would shift your overall mix substantially and allow you to be much more profitable. So be thoughtful about what is the right job mix for your business, because that does play a huge role in your overall productivity and overall margin. An example, let's say that we did 10 jobs at 100,000 and we created $1 million of revenue. And on that million, we got 15% average gross margin. So we had $150,000 in gross profit. But then we shifted our mix and we dropped down to 6 jobs at $125,000 per job. So we only had 750,000 in revenue. Is that a problem? It's not, because that 750, we're actually able to get a 28% margin, allowing us to keep $210,000 in gross profit. So we went from 10 jobs keeping 150,000 to 6 jobs keeping 210,000. So it really comes down to what's driving your business, what is the right piece to focus on. So be thoughtful about what jobs you're taking, what is that job mix for you, and what is the best mix for your business model, your staffing model, and in your market to get the outcome you're looking for. I do want to talk a little bit about your business management structure. A lot of times I see companies running their business off of their profit and loss, which the P&L is a tax tool set up for FASB. It's not a business management tool. And so some of the costs for tax reasons are called expenses, but they're really job costs. And we need to account for them in our job costing. So building out a true management report to see where your costs are, what your percentages are is important. Here's an example of one that we've built. So you can see in this case, we did 2.5 million in revenue. We have labor costs of 586, owner contribution of 138, so 724 total. There's also payroll taxes, workman's comp, vehicle costs. So the tax and benefit load is actually $80,000. So the total loaded labor cost is $805,000 or 31.7%. We have material costs of 654 or 25.78%. There's some tools and equipment. There's some subcontractors at 748, and there's some other the indirect related cost of 13,000. So all in, the total cost of production was 2.229 million or 87.8% of our revenue, leaving us with 309,900 or 12.2% in gross margin. Our overhead is running just over 10% at 257, leaving us with 51,900 or 2.05% net profit. So as you look at the numbers this way, you can start identifying some areas that could be a challenge. Right? One of the things that would jump out at me right away is between in-house labor and subs, we're spending over 60%. So there's probably a labor inefficiency issue here where we're not selling all the labor hours that we're buying, for example. Also, with subs being at 29%, our material cost is a little on the high side for this particular model, but it does depend on the job mix that we're doing a little bit. But some things that you can start tracking and then setting budgets for that. So what I like to do is build out a analysis and build backwards to the goal, right? So this here is kind of where we are now. We're 2.539 in revenue. We have our cost of production at 87.8%, our margin at 12.2, overhead at 10.16, and our net profit at 2%. This example, we did 76 projects at 33,000 per job on average. If our goal is to up our overhead a little bit from 257 to 300, and we want to make 350 in net profit, that means we need 650 in gross profit to make that happen. If our current job mix is $80,000 projects at a 25% margin and some smaller $30,000 projects at a 30% margin, but we're only landing at 12.2. That means our actual efficiency is between 48 and 40% on those jobs. So that means there's slippage in the process, right? From our estimating inefficiencies, not accounting for all of our labor costs, labor slippage or job slippage or time creep on the job is costing us more than we realize. And for reference, this efficiency estimate right here is just the average margin divided by the target margin. So if our job mix was 70% the bigger projects and 30% smaller projects, to hit our goal, we need to do 5.326 million in revenue and about 100 jobs at that 12.2% margin, which is going to be pretty tough. But if we made some adjustments to our mix, we focused on $100,000 projects at a 32% margin and $40,000 projects at a 38% margin. We got our efficiency improved, not to 100%, but better. Our actual margin would look like this. If we shifted our mix slightly, 75-25 instead of 70-30, we could actually hit our goal with less revenue than we have now at 2,073,000. We'd have a blended margin of 31.35%, and we could actually hit that 650 goal with 28 and a half jobs. And it would be 15 and a half of these and 13 of these smaller projects. So this is important to understand kind of where are you now, where do you want to go, and how do you get there as part of your business strategy and understanding what is the right mix, what are the right jobs, how do we find those jobs in our marketing, our sales process. A $100,000 project at a 32% margin is a very specific client, and a $40,000 job at a 38% margin is also a very specific but different client. So we need to be thoughtful about who we're marketing to, who is our ideal client, and how do we build that to get the overall outcome that we're looking for. And at the end of the day, make more and work less. This is very doable. We do it with our clients all the time, but it has to be very structured and strategic. It's not just about let me go sell a bunch of work and hope that I keep some money. There's a lot more to it. But if we don't know where we are or where we're trying to get to, it's going to be a little tricky to actually land on the right goal. So I hope that was helpful for you. If you have questions or comments, there is a contact us link in the description below, or you can reach out to me. Here's my information. I'd be happy to build out that analysis for you if you would like, or answer any questions on job mix for your business and what the target margins could be for best practices. Thank you very much for watching. I hope it was a useful video for you, and I hope you have a great day.